Look out. I grew up in South Jersey, and when I grew up there, it was all chicken farmers. And I loved it there. My grandparents were farmers, and I grew up with woods around me. And then I went to Antioch College in Ohio, and had a typical useless liberal arts education. And then I ended up majoring in music. So for my last 2 years, I studied a fair amount of music. I played in an early music consort. And right after college, I had a music degree and didn't know what to do with myself. I played in a rock and roll band for 3 years. That was out in Idaho. I got kind of homesick for the East. This is way out in the wilds of Idaho where we were. So I came back east, and then I started getting jobs in wood shops, and I started just by sweeping the floor and looking around. And I started learning the cabinet making trade, and by a few years after that, I was skilled enough to actually be a journeyman cabinet maker. I did live in Inman Square for about 5 years, and that was in a big old group house called Old Joe's. And while I was living at Old Joe Clark's working, that's when I made the big transition to being a performer, because I used to like to hang out in Harvard Square, and this would have been in the very early 80s, late 70s, which is what I refer to in my mind as the golden age of street performing, because that's when the really big, really good acts first started to come out there that would get giant circles. And they had Locomotion Circus was one of the big ones, and that was 3 acrobats. They would set out circus mats and equipment and do all this like mighty 3-person hand balancing. You know, the top guy would be doing a 1-hand stand, and just stuff that you've never, let alone on the street. If you saw it under the big top, it would still be amazing. And those guys and the amazing fantasy jugglers, they were so graceful and swift and beautiful in their movements. So people started getting the word that, oh, you go to Harvard Square on Friday, Saturday night, you really have a good time, and just spend a couple of bucks for, throw a tip in there, and you do well, you'll see some really good acts there. So the place, people would come early, and the place was like a festival every weekend. Now, these juggling balls are not very good. They don't last that long. They worked a lot better when I was 50. I'll be 60 in 1 month. Don Reed, the star of the amazing fantasy jugglers, he was this incredible precision ball juggler, and the things he would do is just magic stuff. And I could juggle at that point. I had learned when I was a kid, but when I saw their act, I just got so inspired. I said, I want to juggle like that guy. And I started practicing and practicing. The second I would come home from work, I'd get cleaned up, get washed, and I'd start to juggle. And I'd put in my couple of hours every day. And on weekends, I would juggle all day. I mean, like an 8-hour job. Variation number 1. And variation number 2. Variation number 3. I make all the names up myself. Thank you. Variation number 5. And then I started thinking, I'd love to perform out there. For the first time, it wasn't just like somebody sitting in a doorway that might make $20 if he's lucky all night. These guys would, if they all didn't go home with $100 in their pocket, it's because something went wrong. I mean, they were making real money, like a job. So there I am. I'm working in the wood shop and practicing juggling when I come home, and hanging out, being a groupie out there. And I thought, I'd like to have an act too, but it's got to be something, there's got to be a hook to it. And I really like music, and I've always really liked one-man bands, and I need something besides the juggling. And then I actually sought for an idea. You know, I opened myself up. I said, I need an idea. And it came to me. I got into this exalted frame of mind. I started making sketches. Yes, it'd be like this. It would have horns. I'd have fireplace bells. It would pa, I just had all these ideas, made all these sketches. So I went home and I said, I got to start this idea now. I looked around in the house. What can I use? And I seized my vacuum cleaner. I took one of the pipes, you know, the metal pipes from the wand of the vacuum, and I started sawing it up and seeing if I could make an organ pipe out of it. And I actually got a pipe that made a nice tone, and that's one of the pipes that's on the Bellowphone to this very day. And I took a bunch of books out of the library on organ pipe construction so I could see a little bit better how to do it. And I made a few different pipes out of salvaged materials, some cardboard mailing tubes, some steel electrical conduit pipe. People would come down to the basement to see this thing I was making. And then my girlfriend at the time says, okay, you know, it's time to go out there. You know, you got to go out there to Harvard Square and see what you can do. So I said, oh, no, I'm not ready. You know, I've got all this stuff. She pushed me out there. She said, take that thing and we're going. And she like dragged me kicking and screaming out to the street. And she said, play for these people. And so that first night I was out there, I think I made like $40 or $50 or $60. I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe it. This is working. And I came home, we counted our money, and when we were laughing, and I said, tomorrow I'm going to go out there again. I'm going to make $100. And I went out there that next night. I made $150. And concurrently with that, a friend of mine was in town that was looking for work, and he was a skilled woodworker. So I brought him into my shop and introduced him, and he just kind of slid into my job, and I never went back, and I became a full-time street performer. Should I play the rest of this?